The DC Defenders won on Sunday. It was a good win. They won at home. And I got to say, if we're going to talk about DC winning at home, I love DC's home stadium. It's beautiful. It's the best home stadium in the XFL. It's a smaller, more intimate, perfect spot to watch a game. And they beat a really good team, St. Louis. They won 15-6 over St. Louis. And here's the key to the game, why DC won. DC benched their struggling quarterback, Cardale Jones. DC started running the ball. In the first 9 plays of the game, DC ran the ball 8 times. They threw the ball only once. And it really showed that, hey, we're not that confident in our quarterback, Cardale Jones. And also, we really believe we can run the ball incredibly well against St. Louis. Now, Cardale Jones' first pass, I believe it was a 3rd and 11, was incomplete. And on his second throw of the day, he avoided a sack. He extended the play. He's running to the sideline. And instead of throwing the ball out of bounds to live to see another day, guess what he did? He threw the ball into coverage, and it got intercepted. Should have thrown the ball away. And so they benched him. They said, we're done. We're tired of the turnovers. The DC Defenders benched Cardale Jones and put in Tyree Jackson at quarterback, the quarterback from Buffalo. University of Buffalo, played briefly with the Bills. And he came in and was very fine. Tyree Jackson was fine. Tyree Jackson was not impressive. If he was, I would credit him, but he wasn't. But what Tyree Jackson did really well was he limited the negative plays. He avoided costly mistakes. There were no huge wow plays from Tyree Jackson at quarterback, but let's be honest, DC doesn't need that. They're a really good all-around football team. The 2 losses DC has this year came because Cardale Jones was turning the ball over and making massive, massive mistakes. Tyree Jackson did enough to win, and that's all he needed to do. He did have a short touchdown pass on a slant. It was an RPO. The defense came inside. He threw the slant for a short touchdown, and I was really happy for him. And Tyree Jackson had several runs that converted 3rd downs. Great. Also really, really good. But in the passing game, Tyree Jackson didn't do much. He was 9 for 14 passes. He completed 9 passes of the 14 he threw. So 9 completions for only 39 total yards. 39 total yards in the entire game for Tyree Jackson throwing. He did have that 1 touchdown. DC ran and ran and ran and ran the ball. It just pounded the ball repeatedly. They ran the ball 41 times for 229 total yards rushing. That's awesome. Now, Tyree Jackson made a couple of mistakes in the passing game. There was a play where he bailed out of the pocket way too early on one play. St. Louis brought the blitz. And yes, blitz makes you nervous, but DC's offensive line was able to pick it up. And in spite of that, Tyree Jackson just bailed out of the pocket way too early, like he didn't trust it. There was another play where he had a deep crossing route wide open. And I mean, there was no defenders in the middle of the field. His guy was wide open in the middle. But he took his eyes down to run and didn't get all the way through his read progression. He just wasn't comfortable. He was looking to run a little bit too early. But again, Tyree Jackson was a lot better than Cardale Jones for this simple reason that he had no costly turnovers. Cardale Jones this season has 4 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. It's not good. Too many turnovers. But I do want to credit Cardale Jones here. He really earned my respect. He got benched, and getting benched is terrible. Doesn't feel good. But what he did is stayed engaged with the game. He wasn't pouting alone by himself on the sideline. He was in it. He was focused. He was ready if his name was called again. And there was a moment where, when Tyree Jackson threw that, short slant for a touchdown, the first guy out there to celebrate with him was Cardale Jones giving him a side bump. I love that. I massively, massively respect Cardale Jones for his leadership in that moment. Last week, Brandon Silvers, the quarterback for Seattle, got benched, and he walked off on his own and pouted and wasn't engaged in the game at all. And you got to credit Cardale Jones here. His leadership and his maturity for handling being benched that well was really, really impressive to me. Now, there are 2 final notes I want to make about DC. Number 1 is that I love watching the DC defensive end Anthony Johnson. He's great. He's AJX, I think 5 on Instagram. His Instagram's fun. I love him. I love his intensity. I love his passion for the game. And when you watch him play, it's so clear. Anthony Johnson just loves playing the game of football. It's so refreshing and cool to see. DC in totality had 4 sacks on defense. And DC had 2 really big stops on 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter at the end of the game. Not 1 stop on 4th and 1, but 2 stops on 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter on consecutive drives. DC's defense came up big when they were needed. And then number 2, I got to say this because it's important. I really, really like Pep Hamilton, the head coach of DC. And I get he's probably got a lot on his plate because his main concern is trying to get into the end zone, not what you need to do once you do get into the end zone. But DC still has no idea how to handle the conversion situation after a touchdown. So after a touchdown, you can go for a 1-point conversion from the 2-yard line, a 2-point conversion from the 5-yard line, or a 3-point conversion from the 10-yard line. And DC very clearly has no idea what to do. Every other XFL team has figured out their plan. Every team has a unique plan. Some teams have a special package where they run a certain special formation. Some teams have a different approach and they only go for 2 every time or whatever it is. But every other team has figured out their plan for how to handle a conversion after a touchdown. DC is not. They're 1 for 9. Of the 9 times DC's tried a conversion this year, they've gotten 1 of them all season. And it's pretty clear. Again, Pep Hamilton, the head coach of DC, is like, I don't know. I got no plan yet. We'll figure it out. And I think part of it, again, is they're so focused on just trying to score touchdowns that, getting a conversion is an afterthought. But it is something worth talking about. I love Pep Hamilton. He's got to figure out a plan sooner or later for what to do after you score a touchdown because they are the worst in the league, and they look aimless and like they have no plan after a touchdown is scored.